There we are. No, it takes a couple minutes, 30 seconds, whatever it is, for everything for y'all to actually be able to see me. See, we got a few people in here already, and hopefully a few more will come in before we get started on the topic. And so while we're waiting, I got to admit something. I have a confession. Normally, by Friday afternoon, I have all my notes ready to go for Sunday. I got my whatever video I'm going to shoot earlier in the morning, all figured out, notes for that. And I got my live show all figured out, notes for that. So yesterday morning, I get up, and of course, it's Saturday, it's the Sabbath. And I'm like, did I get all my notes together on Friday? Because I remember on Friday thinking I was all set for today. So I open up my notebook and I'm like, oops. But I'm like, well, I'm not working on it today because today is my day off and I need to focus on other things. And of course, it was also my birthday, but I don't make a big deal about it. But I'm only saying that because several people did come in and say happy birthday who remembered. I just hardly ever even mention it to anyone. And the last time I said it, I don't know how long ago it was. So thank you for those who came into comments and said happy birthday, over the last couple of days. Appreciate that. So at any rate, yeah, so we don't do anything special for birthdays really for ourselves. But we went to our fellowship, never said a word. I'm not going to because that's not why we're together. So I can say, hey, everybody, it's my birthday. Nope. We had a good fellowship. It was nice. Came home, wasn't home for very long when my oldest son showed up with his family, and his wife, Kayla, is the one that makes the amazing cakes. So now she's doing all at home business. And she does really well with it, and she makes the best cakes I've ever had. And I was never much of a cake person. I mean, not that I didn't like cakes, but I always preferred pies over cakes until I met Kayla and started being able to taste some of her amazing cakes, and she just keeps getting better all the time. So she made me a little um, raspberry filled cake with raspberry on top, knowing that and see, yes, the day before Friday was my oldest son's birthday. She made him the same cake, and we all love raspberries. So I guess he had asked for a raspberry vanilla cake and probably knew I would also really like a raspberry vanilla cake. So I got to have a little piece of it yesterday, even though it was kind of late in the day. And I try not to eat after 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But it's like, well, it is my birthday, and she made me this cake. And then today I'm finding I do best if I stick with this schedule of fasting on Sundays and Wednesdays. So I'm like, man, I got that yummy cake sitting in the little refrigerator, and I have to wait till tomorrow to have any more of it. So hopefully, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, so they came over with the babies. Jackson had made a little card for me. Oh, I should have brought it in here. It looks like what Caleb must have done was printed off a little drawing of a chicken. And so he colored it. He put a whole bunch of colors on it. I'm like, well, that must be a rooster. That looks like Antonio. And had a little note in it, and it was pretty sweet. So they hung out for a while. So that was nice. But anyway, so raining in Florida. Well, it's actually kind of sunny here. We must have got your sun and you must have got our rain. So it's not like super, super nice. It's just like the standard Forks sunny, where it's like sunny for a few minutes and then cloudy and then sunny and then cloudy, but it's not raining. So that's nice. It was pouring down rain yesterday. So this is the time of year it's a constant back and forth. But at least it was dry enough today. I was able to get out there, earlier. If you saw my post on my other channel about the nettle, get my first batch of nettle. There's still a bunch more out there, but now's the best time to get it before it starts going to seed and flower and all that. So I'm probably going to go ahead and dehydrate that in my dehydrators and might go out and get some more. And then I'm also going to try to make it a habit to be cooking up a bunch of it, while it's at this point. I tend to forget that the nettle is the very first thing that's ready. And I always think dandelions. So I'm always looking for my dandelions. And I do see some little leaves coming up, which means the flowers should start popping up soon, but no flowers yet. And I'm like, oh, wait, nettle. Gotta have that nettle. Um, Probably as far as the side goes, my favorite way to eat it, I'm gonna have to get started on my topic. My favorite way to serve it is to saute it in butter and homemade wine along with some garlic and onions. Sometimes I'll throw in a few other vegetables, like maybe I get some of those mini organic bell peppers of the red, yellow, and orange, and then chop those up and throw them in there too. But even with just the garlic and onions and then the butter and homemade wine and then saute it, I love that. Now, some people like to eat nettle kind of like the same way they would spinach, cook spinach with the vinegar or lemon juice, which is the way I grew up eating spinach, and I loved it. Cooked spinach with vinegar or lemon juice. Yummy. And I've done that with the nettle, but I'm finding I really like the butter and homemade wine best and sauteed. So I'll probably do that for lunch tomorrow. I'm thinking that sounds like a good lunch thing. So yes, the Afghan. I need to get started on my topic, and I was going to wait and talk about that. It's only just started. I got one more strip to do. It's a baby Afghan. So I'm making it for the newest baby to come along. So Ryan and Kayla's youngest one. So we are having another granddaughter. So we'll have 2 grandsons and 2 granddaughters. So I got one more strip. And I wanted to make sure I made the little it's just going to be like a kind of an infant size Afghan, but since the baby's going to be born in July, I wanted it to be very airy. So I thought the daisy Afghan would be a good idea. I made and I wanted it to be different than the one I made for Rowan. I made Rowan's with the little what were they called? Not tulips, but they were little purple flowers, a little more solid with 6 petals. These flowers take a long time. They each have 12 petals. And some petals, the petals that are like, you got too long, too and a short, too long and a short, too long and a short, because of the way they sit in the Afghan. So at any rate, yeah. So I might actually finish that up tonight. I'm surprised. It's partly because it's so small, but I'm surprised at how quickly I'm getting it done. So I've got lots of time, but I'm trying to decide if I want to make her a sweater or make her a second little Afghan that's solid. So no, it wouldn't be called pansies. They're violets. They're supposed to look like little violets. So close. Violets? That still doesn't sound right. At any rate, the what was I going to say? So yeah, I could make her a little sweater, but I'm thinking maybe a second Afghan that's more tight stitch in case she needs something warmer, but I'm sure she's got plenty of blankets. So I'm like going back and forth. Anyway, so let's get started on the topic. Oh, and yes, let me remind everybody, though we've been doing good, today's probably going to be that day we get cut off. So if I get cut off, the link to the reboot stream is in the description box down below. Make sure you watch in the chat. I'll let you know if I start the second stream or not. If I feel I've said everything I've needed to say in this, I won't bother starting a second stream unless I feel like it. So yeah, that's just because periodically YouTube just randomly decides to cut off our stream, and then I can't come back to this stream. It will just look frozen. So the only way to get it going again is to end it, start a new stream. It's kind of frustrating. So, hopefully I'll have time to talk more about that, but let's get to the topic. So, let me do my greeting first. So, hello everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Hope you're all having a great day, by the way. So, today we're talking about overcoming fears of preserving your own foods. So I was talking earlier about how I totally forgot to get my notes together. So I was actually slept in today until after 4:30. I was amazed, but at any rate, I'm like, I got to at least do a live. If nothing else, I'll come up with something to talk to, even if talk about, even if it's a Q&A. And then it dawned on me, oh, I got the perfect topic. So I started throwing some notes together. So that a lot of times when people first start thinking about putting up on their own food, and I know a lot of you that are already here in the chat, it's something you've already been doing. So you're probably not going to hear much new, but it still can be a fun thing to talk about. And please share your thoughts in the chat. And that way I can read them out loud for the standalone video I'll make out of that, which of course I'm cutting this part out of that video. But a lot of people, when they first start thinking about this, there's so much fear mongering over putting up on your own food, which is really a shame. And while, yes, we need to practice safe measures when it comes to canning and pressure canning and yeah, dehydrating and storing. And yes, of course, there's going to be safety measures you need to take. But I've noticed that it's getting worse and worse, the constant fear mongering and scare tactics that seem to be used that then make people just afraid to ever even get started. And I know for me, I wasn't afraid to get started in food preservation. I probably would have started off with dehydrating had I had a dehydrator and known a little bit more about it. But I started off with just making jams. And at that point, jams were the common way to do it then because we actually had better metal lids that had a better little thicker gummy thing around them. Was you just filled your hot jars with the hot jam, made sure the rim was clean, put the band on, and before you put the lid on, then put the band on and inverted them for like 5 minutes or so. And then the heat would heat up that lid. And then when you turned the jars back up, the jar would seal after a few minutes. And never had a problem until Ball changed their lids. And I'm sure Kerr did too, and made them not quite so quality. We'll put it that way. And then I was like, why do I keep losing seals on my jams? And I thought that was really bizarre. And I kept thinking, what mistakes am I making? And then come to find out they had changed the lids. And I'm like, oh. So after that, I learned then the best way to do that was to start water bath canning. Well, the jam after you put it in the jars. Well, by that point, I had already started water bath canning peaches and homemade salsa. So that was no big deal. That was easy. Water bath canning is like one of the easiest things to start doing. And then just understanding that when it comes to water bath canning, what you're going to hear mostly is that you should only use that when it comes to high acid foods. So salsa, because of the tomatoes and usually the added lemon or lime juice that you're putting in there, and any fruit, jams, and whatnot, because of the sugar and the high acid. You don't need to pressure can. But then you're told that you have to pressure can everything else from, anything that's low acid. So it's going to be all your vegetables and your meats. However, I still think it's good to know that water bath canning meats and other low acid foods is something that people were doing long before pressure canners were even invented. People were water bath canning their meats and their beans and so on. And in fact, clear up until the 50s, at least, they still had charts out for water bath canning everything from fruits to vegetables and meats. The main difference is you got to boil them for 3 hours minimum. There are certain things that you would boil for a longer period of time, but it wouldn't matter the size. Like with pressure canning or water bath canning, other things, you typically have a time for, let's say, what is it, like 35 minutes for water bath canning tomatoes with added acid if it's a quart, and it'd be less than that if it's a pint, and so on. And with meats, when you're pressure canning, this is a ground beef right here I canned in 2015 that I'm not one bit afraid of. You would pressure can this in this size, the pint, for 75 minutes, and in a quart jar for 90 minutes. But when you're water bath canning, everything, regardless of size, is 3 hours, and some things a little bit longer. But you can still find those charts. And I didn't think to link to it in the description box down below, but I have the charts. I've shown them to people many times that you could find. Even back after pressure canners were invented, they still had the charts out there for people to water bath can their foods. And I know there's still always going to be people when I bring this up that are just going to freak out. Well, here's the deal. If it scares you, then follow the modern day directions if you're scared. If you're scared of using a pressure canner, then you got to overcome the fear of using a pressure canner. And Tammy, I know there's been quite a few people who've tried the Azure standard jars and really are happy with them. I know that if you get them with the lids are the Superb brand lids, which I think are superb. They're great. They seal very well, better than any other jar lid. And I mean, to the point that they can be a little hard to get off, but and the lids are made in the US. So, and I really like the look of the Azure jars. At any rate, so let's get back on the topic of the pressure canner. So sometimes you just got to jump in and do stuff and make sure you follow all the directions. Read through if you have a brand new canner and it's got a book with it, read through the book first. Read through all the directions on how to do it first. And if you bought your canner secondhand, then look the instructions up online or get yourself the Ball Book of Home Canning and read all the instructions on how to run a pressure canner. So 4 Jars is different. It's a different brand altogether. They are a US based business. Currently, all their lids are made in China. The Superb ones are the only ones I know of that are currently made in the US. Oh, not counting the Tattlers. The reusable lids are all made in the US too. So at any rate, when I had bought my pressure canner, because at the time I was like absolutely certain I had to have a pressure canner for putting up beets and green beans and all that kind of stuff. And I'm absolutely 100% thrilled that I got it when I did. But it took me 2 to 3 years before I finally got up the nerve to actually use it. So then what happened was somebody gave us a whole bunch of homegrown beets because they had far more than they could use. And it was a lot. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I better get busy and finally pull out that canner and just do it and get over my fear. I mean, I'd already read about it and all that. And once I finally did it that first time, I mean, I was so scared. I was watching that gauge. Everything. I was just terrified. But once I did it, I was like, "That was easy." Then I wanted to can everything. And so ran down to the local, at the time we had a produce stand and they had some fresh green beans down there. So I could can up some green beans because at the time I hadn't started growing our own green beans yet. Or no, I was growing green beans, but at the time I wasn't getting enough yet to start canning. So I was just freezing them, freezing them. That's what was going on. And started doing a few other things like that. So it's anyway, once I got over that fear, it was so fun. It was so exciting. It was the same exact thing that happened when I first started making soap. I kept putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. And once I made that first batch of soap, I made another batch that same day. In fact, I might have made 2 more batches that same day so I could try different things and I was having so much fun. Um so once you get over the fear of the doing the thing, if it's a fear of working with lye for soap making, the fear of working with a pressure canner because you've been terrified it's going to blow up on you. This is why, by the way, pressure canners are made with safety features such as like the All American canner has a little button. I'm assuming other types of canners, other brands have something similar, but it has a little rubber button that if it gets over pressure, that thing will fly out. Plus, you've got the weight on it that if you're listening, I don't even have to watch it all the time. I love the All America because I've got the rocker on it. And if you're listening, you can tell if the heat needs to be turned down a little bit because you can hear that thing. If it's constantly going constant, you need to turn that heat down a little bit. But that's a regulator, and that also does help keep it from getting too much pressure by releasing. That's how it works. It releases the excess pressure, but it also will keep it at, you have that certain weight on there. Depending on your elevation, you're going to put that weight on there accordingly. Right? So I use 10. Do I use 10? I use 10 pounds of pressure for our elevation. Okay, so and that's why I like that kind of pressure canner because I'm usually doing it outside on the deck and I just have the door open and I'm listening all the time listening. I still will go out there periodically and check my gauge. But I'm familiar with it enough now that it's not a fear to me. So then the other fear, of course, is, oh, well, I don't want to give my family botulism. So, and that isn't even just like the water bath versus pressure canning. People are just afraid to can in any form or to dehydrate and vacuum seal in jars because botulism. It's this big scary boogeyman. Well, we know the boogeyman isn't real, but botulism is real. However, and this is something I share a lot, and I actually looked it up for myself. When I found out that people have actually died from lightning strikes and from being hit by flying champagne corks, I decided, well, let's look up what the statistics are of dying from a flying champagne cork or being struck by lightning and compare that to your risk of dying from botulism from home preserved foods and what the statistics are there. I mean, I took a lot of time, really did some, this was years ago, and I even did a video on it. I think I listed off a few other things. And as rare as it is to be able to actually be hit by a flying champagne cork and be killed by it, as rare as that is, you're more likely to have that happen than you are to get sick and die from botulism from your own home preserved foods. And yes, this is true. When you actually go to like the government websites of, of home, about that's about botulism and the risks and the chances of dying and being, and they'll list it off, all the different things that can cause botulism. And believe it or not, if I remember correctly, home preserved foods was at the bottom of the list, being the least likely that you're going to get botulism from. You're far more likely to get botulism from store bought, store packaged foods, or E. coli or salmonella. How many times has packaged salads been pulled from shelves because of E. coli or salmonella, or packaged meats in the store? A lot. Yet, I have no fear of this home preserved, home canned ground beef that I put up in 2015. I put up a lot of ground beef that year. I was pretty excited. I think that was the year. That might have been the year that I was so excited that I, finally got over the fear of my pressure canner, because I think I bought it in 2013, the canner. And so I was canning everything. So, here's a question. Do you use Vaseline around your rim? Needy has a video on that. Yes. When it comes to, I don't know about other pressure canners, but when it comes to the All American, yes, because you don't have the rubber gasket. It's metal on metal. So I usually only do it once a year. I don't always remember to do it, but just I don't do it between every canning. It's not necessary. That just makes the lid come off easier, and makes it less likely to get stuck onto the counter. So just a little layer of Vaseline on there. How do you know if your food has botulism? Well, you don't. That's the thing. Just like you wouldn't know if the store-bought stuff had it, because it has there's no appearance, there's no smell. You wouldn't know. But the thing is, the point in all this is, um, maybe, Tyler. I would see that as food that has just spoiled because it had a broken seal. But maybe you're correct on that. But I've heard over and over again that you wouldn't know. But if your jars have stayed sealed, no. It doesn't matter if you pressure can them or water bath can them at all at the proper times. That's not anything to worry about. Again, botulism is all around us all the time, but getting sick and dying from it is so extremely rare that you shouldn't be afraid of it, especially if you're practicing safe measures. And there is a big difference between what's considered safe and what was considered safe 50, 100 years ago. But that doesn't mean the old ways of doing things were wrong. And that's the other thing people will use. Well, just because people did it 100 years ago doesn't mean that it's still safe today. I understand that argument, but when it comes to like water bath canning, I do not agree. Now, do I use water bath canning for low acid foods? No, I do not. Why? Because I have a pressure canner that I paid a dear price for, and it's much faster and it saves fuel since I do this outside on propane. Because if I was to water bath can that same stuff, I would have to process it for 3 hours. But if I'm doing something in quart jars, it's going to be 90 minutes. This is actually dried, 75 minutes. So an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, as opposed to 3 hours. Obviously, I'm going to pressure can. So now let's talk about a few other things that people tend to be afraid of when it comes to putting up food. So right here are two different types of dehydrated meats that I have vacuum sealed into jars. People freak out. Some people think that freeze drying meat is the only way, other than canning, that you should put up meat. You should never dehydrate meat. There's actually people that freak out about dehydrating meat, even though it's like the oldest way to put up meat is to dehydrate it without any fancy gadgets. No electric dehydrators, no freeze dryers, just the power of the sun, the air, that kind of thing. And then to top it off, vacuum sealing it into jars. Wasn't there it possible there's fat in that meat? Yes. That's why you vacuum seal it. But it's the fat that people are scared of vacuum sealing because botulism. See what I mean? We can throw that word around. Oh, I can say that about anything. Well, don't wear that article of clothing. Why? Botulism. Don't step off your deck. Why? Botulism. See, I can do that too. That's easy. Botulism, botulism, botulism. See, that's easy. Anybody can do that. The other thing, people are afraid to vacuum seal into jars because of what is it again? Oh, yes, botulism. Nuts, seeds, any fatty foods like this. Why do I vacuum seal them? Because I have a far less fear of botulism than I do of these things going rancid. The chances of them going rancid, if not vacuum sealed and stored properly, are probably about 100%. Chances of me getting botulism from my and I brought Brazil nuts in particular for another reason, another scary tactic reason. Um, the chance of me getting botulism from those, uh, again, I'm more likely to die from a flying champagne cork or stepping outside and getting struck by lightning and dying from that. And a lot of people that get struck by lightning don't even die from it. What do those people call? Right, Tyler. See, this is why I don't understand. You can go down to the grocery store and buy jerky in a plastic bag, and people aren't afraid of that. Or you can go down to the store and buy peanuts and other types of nuts that have been vacuum sealed into jars or cans. And this is something else I say over and over again. Planters peanuts back in the 70s and 80s used to pride themselves. I don't know if they do anymore. I haven't seen commercials, but I remember the commercials for the Planters peanuts vacuum sealed into jars and people opening the jar and the whole point of that commercial, the big thing about the commercial is them opening that jar and hearing that little tss to preserve the freshness and to prevent rancidity. So people used to preserve their meat in fat. Exactly. And I've talked about that before. You take the cooked meat, you put it in the jar, pour the fat over the meat, the melted fat, and then put your lid on there. That's how my Patrick's grandma did it from, North Carolina. So good. Somebody else remembers those commercials too. I've brought that up several times and I don't remember. I don't know that this is the first time I've seen somebody actually say, I remember those commercials. You should see what vacuum sealing does to donuts. I bet it kind of flattens them out because it's going to remove the air from the donuts too. Oh, Watergate. Oh, I must have missed that. Oh, and by the way, the meats I have here. This is turkey from 2024. So from this past it was either from Feast of Tabernacles because I cooked turkey one of those nights, and then Thanksgiving. And this was the meat the extra that had been cooked. I froze it and then later took it out and dehydrated it so it's nice and crispy and wonderful. In fact, I'm really hungry right now, so I feel like opening up this jar and crunch, crunch, crunch. It'd be very crunchy. And then the ground beef that I did in 2023. So, and the ground beef, I don't do that way. I just brown it and dehydrate it. I don't freeze it after I cook it because it's not necessary with your ground meats, like I say all the time. Now, I'm going to show you another thing. People are scared of vacuum sealing into jars because of why? Say it with me. Botulism. Fruits like cranberries, I have right here. Raisins. Any fruit that is, when it's dehydrated, that it's soft and flexible like it should be, because it might have a higher sugar content. Why am I not afraid to vacuum seal my fruits, my dried fruits, into jars? Well, because botulism isn't going to grow in a high acid thing, and fruits have high acid. This is why you can water bath can high acid foods at lower, um, less time than your low acid foods. Your high acid foods, you water bath can for less time because the high acid is not going to get botulism. So same thing with these cranberries. Cranberries are pretty acidic, and these also have sugar in them, because these were the sweetened ones, the organic ones I got from, I think they're organic, that I got from Azure Standard, that are really, really good. I've never, I've pressure canned potatoes. Oh, dry packed water bath potatoes. Oh, I don't know about that. I know people have pressure canned the dry potatoes, dry packed, and I'm going to do that this year. I'm so excited. I didn't plant my potatoes yet. I was thinking today might be a good day, but the ground is still just too saturated. So hopefully next weekend. So I'm really looking forward to trying that. But yes, I vacuum seal my dried fruits, like especially this kind, so that they will stay soft and pliable and chewy. If I don't, they're gonna, like let's say you get like the raisinette raisins, and they're always in little cardboard boxes. You leave them in those little cardboard boxes, what's gonna happen? They're gonna turn to gravel. I don't want gravel when I go to use my raisins or my cranberries. I want them to be soft. So, yes, I vacuum seal them without fear. Now, let me restate the fact that when it comes to each individual person and family, if you are afraid because of everything that you've been told, out there by a lot of younger food preservationists or the mainstream, then you do what's best for you. Don't listen to me. I'm just putting out there what I know from what I've learned because I've studied and because I've looked into the way things were done in the past. In fact, some of you might know, you might have seen some of these videos. I've only seen one and I don't remember the channel's name, but I don't think they ever have any talking in their videos, but they're beautifully done. And I saw this lady and she was an older lady, and she was taking her green beans straight from the garden, putting them in jars with hot water and maybe some salt, and then just laying them, I think, did she lay them on their side so the hot water would probably hit up against the lid, and then just covered them with a towel. And that's how she puts up her food. I don't know where they're from. I don't think they're from the United States. Now, personally, I mean, I'm thinking, well, this person's must have been doing this for many years. Uh, to me, I would personally be a little bit nervous about putting up green beans that way, but I know that's basically the way we did, like I said before, jam. You just want to make sure you got good lids before you did something like that. Which, by the way, now that I have the superb lids, I'm going to try doing my jam, the next batch of jam with those, and do the inversion method without having to run the water bath canner and see if that works. Cause I have a feeling those will seal up good. Cause the only time I started having problems was after Ball and Kerr made their lids cheaper. Let's see. Sorry, I'm reading a few comments in here. A lot of questions, a lot of little tips going around. And then I'm going to look at my notes. Yeah, I am so excited to try dry canning the potatoes. Let's see. What are some other things? Seal jars. See. Oh, let's come back to the botulism again. You guys are going to get pretty sick of hearing it. Let me tell you one more thing that maybe some of you don't know yet. And I had actually learned about this a while back and then forgot about it and remembered it. And then double checked to make sure I was remembering it correctly. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Botox. People are out there getting Botox injections here, there, and everywhere because, We live in a very vain society and people are afraid of getting old. And I'll admit, I see the changes in my face now that I'm 59 years old. Things have changed. I have more wrinkles in my forehead and around my eyes. It's life. It's just life. I earned these as much as I earned these up here. But whatever. However, the some of you may not know what Botox even stands for. It's actually short, just like Teflon is short. It's like it's a brand name, but it's actually short for tetrafluora. I never polytetrafluora, whatever that is. Fluorine. Okay. What goes into making the pants? So botulism is short for botulinum neurotoxin. That's what the tox is, the TOX, toxin. Botulinum neurotoxin, sometimes called botulinum toxin for short. So, in other words, while you got people on one side scaring you to death over botulism when it comes to putting up food, on the other side, you got people that are injecting themselves with it. I'd be far more concerned about injecting myself with botulism. Far more concerned. So, to me, that's a pretty good argument right there. Like, why do you have people fear mongering people against putting up their own food because of a botulism while you've got other people just happily injecting themselves with it on a regular basis? Some people, because of vanity. Probably some of the same people, is what Tammy says. And you know what? I thought the same exact thing. They're probably the same ones that are scared to death to preserve their own food and only trust that which they buy in the store. Yet, I'll say this again. You are far more likely to get sick from all kinds of different things, from botulism to salmonella to E. coli and whatever else, from that which you buy in the store, be it canned, dried, boxed, even fresh and bagged. The bagged salads are some of the worst. Now, I'm not going to say I don't mind a bagged salad now and then. There's some good ones out there. Every now and then I cheat and I buy them from Misfits Market. But, especially at a time of the year where I don't have any lettuce coming in of my own. But I'm not scared of that because it's still rare, but it's far more likely that's going to happen. I think it's more the E. coli, or is it E. coli and salmonella? Maybe those are equal when it comes to the bagged salads. You're far more likely to get sick from buying organic baby carrots. Why? Because they're really not all that organic after all. They were raised that way, maybe, but once they've become baby carrots, they're no longer organic because they've been soaked in bleach, or is it ammonia? Something they've been chemically peeled. That's why they look the way they do. Have you ever pulled a carrot out of the ground and had it look like a baby carrot? No, you haven't. Of course not. Of course not. So I like to make sure I get that information out there because the fear mongering thing just drives me crazy. Oh, let's come back. I'm done with the food preservation section. But why did I specifically bring in the Brazil nuts? A lot of you people that are in here are people who are loyal followers, so you probably already know why I'm bringing these up. Because in recent years, we've been taught to be afraid of these. Never eat more than 2 a day. They'll kill you. Have you heard that? I have. Ever since I did a video on the benefits of Brazil nuts. And I know I had I think I did a video on making Brazil nut milk, or it was Brazil and hazelnut milk, which was really good, either one. It's for those who, who have to be vegan, or for those who are vegan or have to be dairy free. I have lots of dairy free related videos. And sometimes I do just really like having a good healthy nut milk. And so ever since people saw one or both of those videos, well, you should never eat more than 2 a day. My doctor told me they would kill me if I ate more. Oh, what a bunch of nonsense. What they're referring to is the high amount of selenium that is in your Brazil nuts. But what they're failing to tell you, or failing to look at themselves, is that taking too much selenium can be bad for your health. But that only applies to taking it in supplement form, not in its natural form like this, where it's properly combined with the fats, the other minerals that you'll find in there. Taking a selenium supplement by itself, no matter how natural it might be, is where the danger comes in. So if you look this information up for yourself, you'll find it only applies to selenium supplements. But yes, I have had several people come in and tell me, "Oh, you should never eat or more than 2 a day because it'll kill you. My doctor told me I shouldn't eat more than 2 a day because it's toxic." No, it's a misunderstanding, either by the doctor or the person who got the information, or whatever person's giving this information out. And it's false information. I mean, shoot, a lot of us who grew up with always having Brazil nuts and other such on hand, especially around the holidays, man, I could eat Brazil nuts like they were going out of style when I was a little girl. They were my favorites, them and the Filberts. I mean, if somebody gave me 10 shelled Brazil nuts, I would eat them one after another, no problem. They were my favorite. And I hated the fact they were the hardest ones to get out of the shell, because my parents never bought them like this. They always bought them in the shell, and they were impossible to get out of there. And so, yeah, I've eaten 5, even as adult, at least 5 or 6 of them at a time. And I looked up studies done on Brazil nuts, and this can be found on the NIH. Studies on the health benefits of Brazil nuts, where they took a couple of different groups of people and gave them high amounts, like had them eat 25 Brazil nuts in a row, chomp, 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 and then did some tests on them and found that the Brazil nuts helped them. And in at least one case, it had to do with weight, like overweight teenagers or something. And the Brazil nuts really helped with their triglycerides, I think it was, if I remember. It was a while ago. I was looking this up, but you can find that information. It's like I said, it's on the NIH.gov. Look up Brazil nuts. My brother. No, he was watching my video on nettles. Must have saw because I put that post, I put it over on the post that I put on the main channel on the nettle that I collected this morning. I put it on my personal Facebook page, on Instagram, and on X. I try to usually cover all of those places, though I hardly ever post to my Facebook page because it's a pain posting over there. Terry says I'm a Danish nut, but I've met a Brazil nut. Oh, very funny, Tyler. Did Terry really say that? She should, but I'm just wondering. Love Brazil nuts. They are so good for you. Why wouldn't they be? God made. See, that's exactly it. That's the other thing. So we're taught to also be scared of certain nutrients. But, don't get too much vitamin A, don't get too much this, do not get too much of that. Well, that's true if you're talking about taking these things in a supplement form. Or don't take calcium by itself. Again, true. However, if you're getting your supplements directly from your food, they're properly combined. Every food, you're going to see this a lot in seeds. Chia seeds, eggshells is not, it's not a seed, but eggshells is one of them. Poppy seeds. They're going to have calcium combined with magnesium and or potassium and or phosphorus and or manganese. And when you're getting calcium when in the food form where it's properly combined, you don't have to worry about getting too much. You don't, because everything is properly combined. Now, I'm not against supplementation. I think supplementation can be important at certain times in our life, when maybe when we're trying to heal ourselves from something and we're not certain we're getting enough from the food we're eating. Adding a little bit, as long as we're paying attention to what we're doing and not just like gulping down a whole bunch of supplements because we think that's the right thing to do. I'm for that. But I'm also, you're going to be a lot more safe finding out the foods that are high in the nutrients you need and taking those. I feel the same way about vitamin D3. You got people out there going on and on about how you need magnesium and D3. And so everybody's supplementing with these things. And yes, it is helping some people, but not everyone. Some people are having some pretty bad side effects by getting too much, because with vitamin D3, you're not going to hear this a lot right now. What's going to happen is down the road, eventually this is going to come out and be more public. You take too much vitamin D3 and you don't need it, you're going to start having the same symptoms as you would if you weren't getting enough. So it's just like someone like me with my Italian Mediterranean descent with a blood trait called thalassemia, which means I should not take iron supplements ever because I already have enough iron in my blood. The more iron I get, the more anemic I get. So too much iron does the same thing to you as too little iron, especially if it's the wrong kind of iron. So whatever iron I get naturally from my food or cooking in cast iron doesn't bother me. But I know I can tell when I've got too much iron because maybe it was in a supplement I was taking and I didn't know it was there. I know what it feels like, and it's horrible. I do some serious magnesium and potassium during the summer months. I get massive leg cramps and wake up screaming in the night. So, but this is why I take eggshells, because for one, they're virtually free. And they have all those nutrients in them. Potassium, magnesium, selenium. Or wait, selenium. Do they have selenium? I don't remember. Anyway, calcium, I think phosphorus, and manganese, all combined into those eggshells. Powder them up. I put them in liquid and drink them down. I try to do it every day, but don't always remember, but I can tell when I need it. It was different. It hasn't been since I started going through menopause that I started noticing the difference in my teeth. And if I can see it in my teeth, that means it's happening to all of my bones. When my teeth start getting gray, it's like, oh, I haven't been taking my eggshells. Start taking my eggshells. It's not that they're turning gray. It's like they're turning translucent and they'll look gray. And you can kind of, if you look closely, like get a magnified mirror and look in there, you can start seeing through your teeth. That means you're not getting enough of all your minerals. So that's why I do the powdered eggshells. And literally every time I do that, I see a difference within 1 to 2 days of doing that, even if it had been weeks since I had taken my eggshells last. Do you get any more iron? See, if you get any more iron, you would spit nails. There we go. Right. But you know what, Tyler? I do that sometimes anyway, especially when I get really mad. If you've ever watched, not that I was big into these movies, but my kids were still teenagers when they first started coming out. What is it? The no, not Avengers. The other ones, were Magneto. I'll just say Magneto. So I remember seeing the movie with Magneto, and they loaded somebody up with iron, and then he was able to pull it out of that guy's blood. I'm like, that's me. That's me if I've had too much iron. You just like pull it right out of my blood. Yeah. I do powdered crushed eggshells for my chickens. They seem to like it. Yeah. I don't powder the eggshells when I feed them back to the chickens. I just crush them and then I put it into their scratch. But for me to take, I do powder them the best I can. And you can encapsulate them and take them that way, but then you're wasting capsules and it's more of a hassle. It's so much faster to just add it to water, juice, tea, coffee, and then drink it down, stir it up, drink it down really fast. Just a little bit of liquid in there. A teaspoon to a tablespoon per day. I don't measure it. I just kind of put it in there. Oh, it looks about right. It's the way I do everything. So just fly by the seat of my pants. But yeah, I find the eggshells has worked really, really great. And yeah, so I just look at my teeth and I was like, whoop, looks like I need more of my minerals. That and then always adding seeds. Whenever I make bread now typically twice a week. And I always add poppy seeds, flax seeds, and chia seeds to all of my breads. Well, especially the yeast breads or pancakes if I'm making pancakes. And so I'm getting some seeds in that way. And the seeds have all those great minerals in them: calcium, magnesium, manganese, potassium, phosphorus. So some are going to be higher in certain minerals than others. And I know I have individual videos on the one on chia, one on flaxseed, one on poppy seeds. Do I have one on hemp seed? I don't, but I have one on black seeds. I add black seeds to some of the breads. It depends on how I'm using them. If they're just going to be a savory type bread, I'll put the black seed in there too. If I'm making it, using it for cinnamon rolls, I don't add the black seeds. It would probably still be good, but I just don't think I'd like the flavor so much. Let's see. All the recalls are the sloppy ones. Wait, I'm not sure what you're talking about. With all the recalls are the sloppy ones and why? Oh, they're the inspectors are sloppy? Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, Carol. Getting some buffering, looking good on my end. Tammy, it's all your fault. It's you this time. Instead of Deb, it's you. So, yeah, anyway, I won't be starting a second chat, by the way. I've been on here almost an hour, and we didn't get cut off. If I get cut off, and I certainly won't be going to the second stream because I've covered everything. But I do have a couple more things I'll say since I'm still here. And, for one, if people missed my intro, I was talking about this partially. I got one more strip to do. This little Afghan is for my newest grandbaby that's coming in July. So it's just a small Afghan, little Daisy Afghan. It wasn't me, says Deb. Yeah, it's Tammy. We're blaming Tammy this time. So it's Verizon's fault. Yeah, I'm sure it is. It definitely has to be Verizon's fault. Because Tammy, you're a little angel. You never do anything wrong. Has anyone ever grown? Yes, I grow horseradish. I got a couple of nice 2 or 3 plants out front, and I have a bunch that keep trying to come up out here that I have to keep digging up and giving away. And I I dehydrate it. I have video on my main channel on dehydrating it. You can I powder it. Some I leave in chunks and then just powder one. No, I don't leave it in chunks. I just powder it all. It takes up a lot less room. And anything I'm going to use it in, I'm going to use it in the powdered form. So you can take that horseradish powder, and I just dry it raw. I don't even cook it. And then you can just add liquid to it, and then if you want to make sure it's not gritty at all, then you can cook it a little bit. But you can make a horseradish paste out of that for using with your steaks and stuff, add a little vinegar to it. Then, oh, there's Deb. That's where she went. She's over gathering links, benefits of thank you, Deb. I say that now. I'm not actually asking you moderators to do that, but I appreciate that. That makes it easy on people so they don't have to go find them. So thank you for the extra work there. So what else is going on? So, preparedness testimonies. Don't forget, I mentioned this in tomorrow's Monday, this and that. I need more preparedness testimonies. So if you haven't sent me one or you got more you'd like to share, send them to me. raincountryhomestead@gmail.com. Title it, brain cramp. Title it preparedness testimonies. It can be one, it can be two, just however preparedness has helped you get through difficult times or how you managed to get in a better situation, be it with your garden, a farm, your food storage, whatever, and did it on a budget. Would it be okay to grow horseradish in a container? I think so, but you're going to want a good sized container, but a container horseradish does want to spread through the roots. So if you're not wanting it to spread and take over whole areas, I haven't had a big issue with that. And even if it did start taking over some of these areas where I have it, I wouldn't care so much. But you're going to want it big enough that the roots can get, a good size to them. But I'll tell you one thing about horseradish, which surprises me so much, is that slugs love horseradish leaves. Which, by the way, horseradish leaves and flowers are edible too. They taste like horseradish, just not so hot. But the slugs love them. Isn't that the weirdest thing? I wouldn't think they would eat horseradish leaves. You think that one they would stay away from because they don't eat like your other very, very pungent, strong, herbs such as oregano or peppermint or lemon balm. None of that. They leave that stuff alone, but they'll eat the horseradish leaves. Like eat the heck out of them, especially the young leaves as they're trying to come up out of the ground. You talk on this one, do links on the other. There you go. Smart thinking. I was thinking, wait a minute, does she switch accounts to? You must have a couple different windows open, Deb. So so send me those testimonies if you have them. I need them. I'm running out of testimonies to share. Let's see, and then a few garden updates I will mention. Excuse me, I'll probably talk more in next week's, not tomorrow's, but next week's this and that on spicy slugs, right? But on garden updates, but just real quickly, working around the pouring down rain, we'll get like a nice day. And so I did get up and out there and dig up a couple of comfrey plants because that's the other thing with comfrey is that it will spread under the ground and start taking over your garden. So been, and clearing back some of the nettle because it was coming out into the garden. So I got everything's pretty much ready for planting my potatoes out front. And then I got a couple other areas in the back I need to make ready for potato planting. And then I stretched, I have this other section of fence, the flexible kind, that I stretch across the front yard garden. So it's in front. Okay, how do I explain this? So I have this whole fenced in front yard garden that typically I let the can wasabi slugs gross. Anyway, that I'll let the chickens free range in there late summer through up to the time I'm ready to start planting in there. But then to allow them to they still have a little space where they can go into the front area. It's probably I would say it's about 5 feet because I know I'm 5 feet tall. So my arm span is from fingertip to fingertip is 5 feet. So I'd say it was about 5 feet in depth from the house to where this fence is, and I'll stretch that little fence across there so they can still go to the front, and it gives them another place they can hang out on rainy days because it's still got the eaves to protect them, or get a little sun if they want, and they like to hang out there. And so they still have another area they can go hang out, or even take dust baths on dry days since they're not allowed in the greenhouse. pretty soon I'm gonna have to block them off from the greenhouse. Well, I still have time before I start putting things in the ground in the greenhouse, but I've got things in the pots, and that will be safe for a while. So, uh, yeah. So anyway, I did get that done. Harvested some nettle, still a lot of nettle I could harvest, not counting what I showed in that picture. I could grab at least that much more again. And then with nettle, like with a lot of those kind of herbs, it'll just grow again. You can just keep cutting it and it will grow. So that uh and another thing you can do with nettle that's really good for your garden, you can do a chop and drop. Because nettles like comfrey is very nourishing to the garden. So I need to start getting in the habit of doing that before my nettle goes to seed. So when I get plenty of nettle, my nettle here, because of where I grow it and because of where we live, it actually gets almost as tall as a house. Well, okay, let me put it this way. It gets taller than the gutter line on the house. It gets taller than that. So it gets really tall. I didn't know nettle could get that tall. If I just leave it alone, that's what it does. It gets very tall. So it's funny because I always thought of nettle as getting maybe only, a few feet tall at most. But no, here it gets very tall and it loves it here because it's cool and wet and doesn't have a lot of direct sun. So I think I have a short, probably on the main channel, on nettle that I showed. I think I took a clip of it and then panned up so people could see how tall it was that I put into that little short. It's tall. So, oh, and speaking of shorts, I still have a few more shorts that are scheduled to publish here on this channel, but I've decided I'm not doing that anymore because YouTube has taken away the ability of having links in the description be clickable only when it comes to shorts. So any links that are in a description box on a short, you cannot click on, only on other types of videos. And also in comments on shorts. A lot of times the link, if you put the link in a comment or a pinned comment, a lot of times those are unclickable. I don't know why they do that. You think, especially if you're linking back to more YouTube videos, they would make it clickable. The only thing you can do is put a clickable link, and only one, on the video itself. So it's added in as you're uploading and then it shows up. So if you look at the bottom of the screen itself, as the video's playing, you'll see like the channel name. And I think it's either just above or just below the channel name. If I can add a video link, it'll be there. However, you can only do that with videos that are on that same channel. You can't add a link from another channel. So, because that's what I was going to do. I can't do it. So from now on, I won't be putting any more shorts probably over here unless I don't need to link them back to another video. They will only go on my main channel because they're not really helping me here anyway. I think I'm just going to keep this channel. Once all the videos I already have shorts, I still have a few more full length older videos that I've remastered waiting to publish. Once all those have published, I'm only going to be using this for live and everything else will be going on my other channel. And I may still occasionally do a live show on my main channel, but like I didn't obviously do one today because it's just been a weird day. It's a good day and it's nice out there right now, but just weird because I'm like, man, I'm just so discombobulated because I didn't have any of my notes for today. And so I had to come up with an idea. And I still got to sit down and try to figure out all my notes for the videos I shoot on Wednesday and hopefully get myself far enough ahead that I can have them figured out for next Sunday too. So I don't do the same thing again. But yeah, weird, just weird, weird. But anyway, when I get off here, one of the things I'm going to do is go put my nettle on the dehydrators, and I think maybe stretch the power cord across so I can, because I am going to I find that they don't dry really well next to the wood stove for some reason, the nettle you think it would. It does better in the dehydrator, so I'll probably, since we're getting plenty of sun, I'll probably plug them into the solar outlet. But I have to stretch the extension cord all the way out into the hallway, way out here. It's probably maybe about 30 feet ish. Yeah, right around in there. So that's okay. I already got one stretched out over here to my computer, another one stretched from over there to my lights. Let's see, I'll try to post a preparedness story, but I forget what posted last. So yeah, if you're going to share it, if you want me to read it in a future email, in a future video, send it to my email, raincountryhomestead@gmail.com, preparedness testimony. So I think I covered all the doodads that I was going to talk about. I know there's more garden stuff I've been doing. My tomatoes are just popping up like crazy, especially they're doing really good. The purples and the mortgage lifters. So I'm hoping um, it doesn't get really cold again because I'm thinking I'm going to have to move them out to the greenhouse already pretty soon. And then my Chinese 5-color peppers and then all my herbs. Still looking for my mullein to come back. I'm afraid it's not going to. I'm going to be so bummed. I might have to start all over at the mullein. Though I would imagine I should get some young plants coming up from seed. But if I don't, if my older mullein doesn't come up this year, I won't have any seeds to sell. I'm so bummed. Anyway, I think that was it. I think I covered everything I was going to cover. So I probably should go. My throat's starting to hurt a little bit. It's been a little just not great for some time, my vocal cords. And it's like I don't think I'm using them that much more, but except for on days like today where I'm talking for an hour or so straight. It's just been kind of vocal cords just really bother me a lot more lately. So it's frustrating. Let's see. I was going to transfer my tomatoes to the raised bed, but it's raining. Yeah. Anyway, and there's something else besides the nettle. I was hoping to get out there, and it seems like there's some more stuff I'd like to get done outside if I can. But I'll remember. I don't know. Like I said, I'm all discombobulated today, even if it is a good day. You'll have to mullein it over for next year. I know. Tyler, you're almost the king of puns. There's a young man that lives he's not that young. I still think of him as a young man that lives in our town, is definitely the king of puns. Everything is a pun with him. Everything. Some of it's really dumb too. Maybe I shouldn't call him the king, because even though he can pun about everything, some of them are pretty funny, but some of them are pretty stupid. Anyway, see, I'm having a hard time getting off here because I enjoy talking to you guys and I enjoy hanging out. But I'm looking out my windows and I can see the sun is shining and I kind of want to get out there in it. I got to go find something to do out there. I know there's something I can prune. Something I can prune or dig or something. Anyway, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for coming in. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless. So here we go. I got to hit this button. Then I got to hit this button.